all ready to get started? Yes, yes, yes. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you all for coming to our very first Downtown Community Task Force meeting. I'm Leslie Xavier, and I'm the principal planner with the city on this project. We also have Rena Brio, who's our planning manager, and also who's missing today out sick is Steve Lee, who will be the project manager for the project. Let's see. So with that, this is our agenda for an evening. We're going to do welcome and introductions, overview of the Downtown Precise Plan, overview of the roles and responsibilities of the task force, reviewing our request for proposals for the urban design consultant, which is the big part of our meeting today. And then after that, we'll take public comment and then adjourn. So with that, I would like the task force members to just go around the table and introduce yourselves. Tell us why you're excited to be a part of this task force and maybe a little about your vision for downtown. So if we want to start with Dan on the end there. Yeah, just in case, make sure you. Oh, yes. Oh, please turn on your microphone. Just push the button.
There we go. So I'm Dan Ondersack, and thank you very much for this. We've been dreaming about this for 2.5 years now. So I'm co-chair of Reclaiming Our Downtown, and we are an all-volunteer group of 3,500 native Santa Clarans. We aren't making a dime on this. We don't work for a corporation or government entity or anything. Our sole purpose, sorry about this, is the return of an economically viable, architecturally significant downtown Santa Clara, to return the heart to our hometown. When we started out, there were five of us, and we're at about 3,355 now. About a year into our beginning, we took a survey with Councilmember Davis's help with her commission. I want to thank her, point her out right now for that, informing our 5 visions. And the first one, I won't go into all 5, but the first one, the one that is most important to our members, is the return of the exact street grid, Main Street, Franklin, etc. Sad as it is, in 100 years, a lot of the buildings we're talking about are going to be gone, because it's America and things change. But that street grid will always remain as the most important focal point of Santa Clara and the heart of that city, of this city. So we're most focused on that as well. I want to point out that we've done in these last 2.5 years a whole bunch of research. We've surveyed 2,000 voters so far and found 87% of them want this done. So you got a lot of happy people out there. We've also interviewed scores of urban planners, city managers, sorry about that, and architects who've worked on both successful and non-successful downtowns. So we'd love to share that with the city as well. So if you need that as resources, it's there. And in closing, I want to share one insight in reviewing the agenda for tonight. The RFP and consultant selection are very important tools, but they are not the first step. The most important thing in our minds for this team to execute is the vision. What do we really want? What kind of downtown? What's the dream? And that's what we're here for. So I know I went over, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Hello. My name is Soleil Cayetano. Didn't have a speech prepared, but I'm a student at Santa Clara University. I took an urban planning class, and I think that's the main reason why I'm here, because I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to be part of shaping downtown. I live across the street, and I think that it could use a little more life, a little more integration with the university. What I can add to you guys is the voice of the young person. That's really important, and we're probably not very often. So
I'm Deborah Von Hewen. I'm the current chair of the Cultural Commission. So I'm representing the Cultural Commission here on the task force. And I'm really interested in finding ways that we can partner with both reclaiming our downtown and the task force itself, finding opportunities for outreach to the community to find out what they want. My big passion is interactive art and public art. I want to make sure that's well represented too. And as part of the Cultural Commission, that the diversity of our community is also represented. I really feel there's a strong wave of nostalgia in our community to bring back something that was lost a long time ago. And there are so many new ways to do urban planning, including placemaking, that I would really love to see be a part of this project.
Sorry, I think I'm coming down with a cold. I'm Anna Vargas Smith. I'm representing the Historical Landmarks Commission. I also represent on Reclaiming Our Downtown as well. What drew me to Historical Landmarks Commission was I'm a history buff. I'm crazy for everything historical, and so this is a perfect fit for me. I grew up in Santa Clara. I lived in the old quad as a child. I used to walk to St. Clair's every day, and I walked past all those beautiful buildings, the Morse Mansion, the Frank Building. I mean, they were all there. And I kept thinking, what beautiful treasures these were. So here I am, I won't tell you how many years later, but now I'm on Historical Landmarks Commission and part of this wonderful once-in-a-lifetime project, which is bringing back the downtown. 2 years ago, I found out there was no downtown. And I didn't know until I saw the Facebook that Rod Dunham had posted all these pictures from these beautiful buildings, and I thought, where is this? And I found out it was Santa Clara, and I'd never seen them. So I'm excited to not necessarily duplicate what was before, but to bring back a thriving downtown where people can gather, enjoy art together, engage with community, friends and neighbors, and just celebrate being Santa Clara. And so I'm really excited to be part of this.
My name is Adam Thompson. I'm currently the president of the Old Quad Residents Association and lifelong resident of Santa Clara. I grew up in town and went to Bookser Middle School in the early 90s and watched one of the houses on Madison get put back together, and always fell in love with the old architecture of Santa Clara's downtown area. And decided at that moment, when I was probably about 11 years old, that I was going to live in the Old Quad. I was lucky enough to be able to get a house in 2012, and I've lived there ever since. And it's a great community. But the one thing we're missing is a great place to hang out together. And it would be really nice to see the downtown be restored to, probably not what it was, but what we want it to be. And that's really a community space and somewhere where we can get together and spend time. So I'm really excited about this. I think there's some really great opportunities in front of us, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rob Mayer. I'm an architect. I've been living in the Old Quad since 2002. I spent 4 years on the Planning Commission and the Architectural Committee from 08 to 12. I grew up in Cupertino that also didn't have a downtown, and that was always very frustrating. And one of the best times in my life was when I moved to San Francisco, and there's all these great neighborhoods and a downtown, and there's just so much energy and vibrancy. Then in 2002, I moved down here and found a crazy old house that nobody wanted, built in 1863, and never thought I would even want to work on an old house because I grew up in an Eichler, and I do like modern as well. As I was talking to neighbors and enjoying, I love the Old Quad, talking to a lot of old timers about the downtown, they kept, the common theme was, well, it's never going to get built. We're pissed, we're angry. And I just kept saying, well, I've got to make a change, help make a change in this city. And that's why I got involved with the Planning Commission and the Architectural Committee. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I haven't been too happy with the way the built environments occurred in the city. So I'm really excited about this committee. The same thing that the student over there, Soli, said is like, where do I go? I end up going, I mean, I go to the restaurants locally, but in terms of the energy level, I get more far of that energy component. I'm a little older than you, so I don't need as much energy maybe. But I'll go to Campbell, I'll go to Sunnyvale, I'll go to Willow Glen, and, you know, I guess the in final saying here is that, you know, I've always felt that the soul, it's not that the built environment was torn down, it's also the soul of the city that was ripped out. And my thing is to make sure that when we build it, there's a soul there. And too much that I see going along nowadays being built lacks a soul. And if it doesn't have a soul, then I see it as being problematic. So that's one of my big focuses is I have a guttural and I'm a trained professional, but it's not just that. It's just I enjoy making sure that the built environment works on many levels. So thank you for this opportunity. Yeah.
Wow. I'm super honored to be part of this group. I'm impressed with the energy that people have, and excited about the opportunities. So I am Matthew Reed. I have been a resident of Santa Clara for about 15 years. I have 2 kids in public schools. I don't live in the Old Quad, but I do live in town. And used to live just down the street from the downtown, and came into the community. My wife teaches at the university, and it was always a challenge to figure out a place that I could walk with my kids to be in a sort of a vibrant space. I lived right on Benton Street at the Alameda for almost 10 years. So I'm super excited by the opportunity. I wear a couple of other hats. I am listed as the El Camino Real Advisory Committee rep, and I've been participating now for a while in discussions about what to do with the El Camino Real corridor. There are clearly going to be different discussions, but I think what they share is a sense that Santa Clara, like much of the region, is at a turning point. We're for a whole bunch of reasons that we'll probably touch on. But we have an opportunity to shape what the future is going to be. And I'm from Chicago originally, so things last a long time. I'm not sure they're all going to disappear, but I do agree that you make decisions in the moment, but that they last for a long time. And so that's a great opportunity. My third hat is that I work professionally as a housing policy and housing and development advocate in Santa Clara County. Our organization is Silicon Valley at Home, and our mission is to promote housing for all in Santa Clara County. A lot of the work that we do at local levels is around policies related to affordable housing and development. I've spent a lot of time in rooms like this. To be honest, usually I come in at the end and say, this is a bad idea, this is a good idea, so it's always exciting to be part of a process, and so I'm hoping that I can bring some of that energy and experience to this. I've never seen pictures of the old downtown, but I promise that I will do that soon because I'm curious. But I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the city, so I'm looking forward to be a part of it.
All right, thank you all. So with that, I just have a few slides on some background for the downtown. So in 2010, the city adopted their current general plan. In that general plan, the downtown area was designated as a focus area, which is a growth area for the city. The general plan put about 129,000 square feet of new commercial uses for the area and 396 new residential units. In the downtown area, there have been previous planning efforts, none of which resulted in any adopted document. So from 2007 to 2017, there were multiple efforts. But finally, this year in July, I believe, or no, in June, the city council did add money in the budget for a downtown precise plan, which will be an adopted city council policy document. So just a little bit more, the most recent effort by the city presented a vision for downtown, which you see in the first picture on the left. But again, this was not approved by the city council. And then as you've heard, there have been a lot of community input and community groups that have been doing their own visioning around downtown. And as Dan had said, one of the important things is returning the grid street system back to downtown that was removed during urban renewal, the main street being Franklin. And just this year in July, the city council did approve an option with Prometheus, which is one of the big landholders, to have an option for roadway easements to get a portion of Franklin Street back. So, and also a little bit of what was Washington Street as well. So steps in the right direction to get us going for sure. So this is our precise plan boundary. It's about 21 acres. It's bounded by Benton to the north, Lafayette to the east, Homestead to the south, and then Monroe to the west. For the precise plan itself, again, this is going to be a policy document. It's going to include policies, guidelines, and illustrations around financial feasibility, land use, connectivity and circulation, so streets, multimodal street infrastructure, signage for the downtown, and then also design standards. So what are those uses going to look like? Buildings, form, and massing, the streetscape itself, setbacks, open space. Okay, so that's just a little bit about the downtown area. So now we're going to move on to the Downtown Community Task Force roles and responsibilities, so we're all on the same page. So the role of this task force is to represent a range of community stakeholders and interests by guiding the overall direction of the plan. And there's a few ways that you all are going to do that. You're going to help us guide direction on the key concepts of the plan, guidance on public engagement activities, so the results we get from when we go out into the community, helping us digest those and moving in a direction, and then finally, key policy topics for the plan. And then your responsibilities as a group together is to work together to find a common ground, so we can end up with a document that everybody is proud of and supports. Review information and provide input, and then reach out to your community and get them to participate in community outreach and online engagement as well. Okay, so why we're here tonight, this is really the first step in the process. Usually we don't create a task force until we have a design consultant, urban design consultant on board, and they usually help us with presentations and material. But this is, we're doing it a little early this time because the council wanted this task force to provide some input on what's called a request for proposals. So we're gonna put out a request for proposals for professional urban design consultants to respond to. And in that proposal, it's a draft scope of work. So the things that we are asking them to provide us with, community engagement, market demand analysis, a land use plan, studying connectivity and streetscape, design standards, environmental review. So as part of the document, we will also have to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act and do an environmental study on the document itself. And then also possibly help the city develop an RFP for the city-owned properties. So the city does own a number of properties within the plan boundary area. Those which come up for their leases end relatively soon, and so the city may ask them to help us develop an RFP for what to do with those properties once those leases are up. All right, so actually, I'm gonna go back to that. So with that, I wanna open it up to the task force. You all were sent a draft of the scope of work. And so tonight, we just want to hear your feedback and comments on that scope of work. You guys can discuss among yourselves, and I'll be taking notes and answer any questions you have. So I don't know if we wanna go around the table or take hands. It's up to you. Anybody wanna go first? All right, Rob, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I was
Thanks,
ready to
Rob.
do it. I've already done that.
This is more of a broader, so anytime you look to hire somebody, you want to see their resume, right? And this is probably my biggest, I mean, I read through a lot of this, and a lot of it is not necessarily in my expertise in terms of preparation, but if I step back, the most important thing, there's a lot of people that are qualified to do this type of stuff, just like an architect, but there's good and bad architects. And my biggest thing is to make sure that the person, it's beyond the qualification, they have that something extra special that's gonna help guide this city, because it's so important. And there's so much work out there right now that I don't even know how this will go down, because it's ridiculous. This is the biggest it's ever been in terms of a boom. So that's just one comment, and that's what I'm most interested in that regard. I don't know if you want to.
I can say we do require resumes for the company itself and for the people that will be working on the document. I didn't give you guys that information because it's kind of standard stuff. You know, they have to give us cost estimates as well and breakdowns of that. I didn't give you all that sort of nitty-gritty kind of stuff, but we do require a resume and a cover letter.
Okay, so beyond that, because my wife's in HR and she reviews hundreds of resumes, and sometimes a resume is not exactly the representation. So I'm getting a little deeper into this. And I hear her, she's a HR recruiter. She places people in HR companies. And I hear all the ways the different companies, she's talking to CEO, CFO, and everything. Sometimes they do a test where they say, here's a sample project. We'd like you to prepare for it, and then you'd like to present to us, okay? It's a way to get beyond paper. And I can usually, I'm pretty good at reading people, and so I'm more of a visual guy. But that's just super important to me, is, you know, if I could have a competition in the big picture, but again, it's the biggest building boom, and some people are like, forget it, we got 10 other cities that we can work with. So I don't know that dynamic, you know, how that'll all play out, but that's just one thing. And then I'll just add, what would be helpful for me is to see an example of a precise plan, just as a committee, and where it got built out. So, and I don't know if there's a local example. I know Redwood City is booming, but maybe there was a precise plan in a part of town there, and it just gives me a little bit more understanding of what to expect. Okay, so I'll be quiet now.
Well, go ahead.
I'd like to see this, one of the deliverables be the overall context of the city, not just this specific area of downtown, but also in the context of the new development on Benton, the new Art Paseo on campus, because that's all going to be connected, and they should be included in the overall vision of how that's going to really enhance as a destination what our city is.
I also echo what Deborah is saying. I think we have to look at it very holistically because BART is coming to our city, and that's going to be an enormous amount of travel. I also go to the VTA BART meetings, and their numbers are mind-blowing, what is coming to our city. So we need to be prepared for that. How do we move those people from the BART station into our thriving downtown? You know, that's why holistically it's important to be considered. We have treasures in our downtown. The Morse Mansion, the Frank Mansion, a lot of the monastery, the beautiful things on campus. How do we steer people through this wonderful downtown? Other things I'm concerned about is access to the downtown. Do we open Brokaw Road and through Benton to bring that high traffic area to be part of our downtown? How do we connect the train station to Franklin Arts District, just like what Deborah was saying? I tried to walk it with had a guest from Monroe trolley system with me. We tried to walk it, and it was like crossing a freeway, basically. It's like, no wonder students choose to go down Alameda instead of coming to our downtown. So that, to me, is a non-negotiable. I think we need to really consider that opened into the Franklin Arts District. And just ways of how are we opening Franklin and Washington Street? Is it Washington to its full width? Or that's not clear. So I want to know what that is. I know Franklin, we are going to get most of it back, but not all of it. I'm also concerned about how does Swenson play into it? I mean, what his role to the downtown is, because he's got a piece of that Franklin as well. So there's, holistically is probably what Deborah was voicing is critical to making this a very successful downtown. Without those people visiting us, not just the locals, but the tourism and the revenue dollars that we want, it won't be a successful downtown. So let's find ways to bring them in. Also, trolley, gotta have a trolley. Very critical.
Okay. All right, so a couple things that, to Rob's point, we have a true uniqueness in this downtown that we've, again, we don't know everything, but we've done a lot of, calling around. I guess one of the questions is, how far out will we go for an urban planner? I know that, California law is tricky, compared to Kentucky or New York, or maybe not New York, but other places. Would we entertain an urban planner from, say, LA or Chicago or something like that? The reason I'm asking that is that we have a number of variables that are unique in that we have not been able to find another downtown since '06 that's been completely destroyed and then rebuilt. And a lot of the mantra that these urban planners come up with is they say, we've got these 3 buildings, and we want to build the new downtown around those 3 architectural gems and kind of go with that. Well, we don't have that. And our second vision that I didn't mention was, we found contractors that can recreate those buildings, at least the facades. So to Rob's point again, can we interview to find people who have done something like that I think there was a city in Kentucky that burned down and they had to rebuild. Paso Robles lost a good section of their downtown, and we talked to their architects and urban planners. The other part is you've got this amazing synergism with Santa Clara, with the university. And you got a bunch of old guys up here and people that are up here that don't go clubbing. And, how is that vibe different from, say a Campbell or a Mountain View or what have you? There's a case in point with Ann Arbor where that downtown is just thriving. And it's, exactly the same, the street leads right into University of Michigan. So I'd ask to consider that. And then the other thing I want to be conscious of is the analysis of their, quote, modern track record, and that's post-Jeff Bezos, post-Amazon retail. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that come up and say, we've been successful from a retail standpoint, but that's after the Amazon boom. And we don't have the same anchors anymore, or you have a different kind of skill set with that. And I think that's it for now. One point to the precise plan is that even though, to Anna's point, we don't get the whole grid right now, the precise plan could carve that out, even though it's not constructed right away. So, thank you.
I'm just going to respond really quickly to your how we hire out the consultant. So we don't limit who can apply. Anyone can apply. We have a bid system that's on the city's website that the RFP will be sent out to. So if you're signed up on that bid system, you'll get the notification. And a lot of consultants are, but yes, I mean, if somebody wants to apply from a different state or from Southern California, we wouldn't prohibit them from applying. And we do include interviews as a part of the RFP. So like resumes, cost analysis, an interview. Yes, that is something we do.
I guess for me, a couple things. I'm not going to repeat anything that I agree with a lot of what everybody else has said, but we have some serious land use issues down there where they're not owned by or controlled by agencies or potential developers who are interested in developing at this time. So how are we going to plan for what we want in the future with the entire street grid and a full 8-block downtown, but still leaving room for maneuvering around some of these kind of elephants in the room of, what do we do if somebody wants to wait 20 years, but we don't want to box ourselves in or out of a certain area. I think that's probably why the last couple RFPs have failed. Looking at the one in 2007, it's, you look at it, it would have boxed out the entire Prometheus property, and we would have basically forever have said, we're going to abandon the opportunity or option to get what we now have. And so I really want to make sure we incorporate kind of a plan A, B, and, or a fallback, right? And then also see if there's, I don't know if the RFP can cover it, but a plan to see what opportunities there are to entice those people to get off their position.
I will repeat a little bit because I think it's important, but I appreciate your brevity. I think there's a need to be what I'm hearing is a desire to be proactive about this. And it may be a little more staff work, but it would make sense to reach out to some folks and make sure, because not everybody's on your list and isn't automatically going to. So it is a particular thing, it's a particular skill set, it's a particular challenge, and finding the right people may mean needing to be proactive about it. I know in your world there's a network of folks who've been doing this in cities in the area, and so at the very least that we will commit to shopping the RFP in our network. But I think that's important. What I'm hearing is that if we get the wrong guidance, we're going to miss the opportunity. And I think Anna's point is super, super important. As I said in the beginning, it's a super dynamic time. There's a lot happening. The way that the downtown is going to integrate into the city is going to be part of a reflection of what we look like now, and is going to be shaped by what we're going to look like 20, 25 years from now. And some of that we don't know, but some of it we do. And that poses challenges for folks who haven't always had to be responsible for looking outside of the planning area. But it's not insurmountable, and I think it's so important given the proximity to the station area. And ideally, all of the exciting things that are going to be happening on El Camino Real, that be part of the scope. And it doesn't mean having to plan an extra 10 blocks in every direction, but it means needing to be able to respond to what we know is going to be happening in other places.
Yeah, I'd like to add that in addition to this being possibly in the transit corridor from BART, there will be a certain designated parking density probably for the housing units. And I know that's been going lower and lower in city guidance. But if this is truly going to be a destination, I think we also need to realize that the retail is going to be a big draw, and there's going to need to be some plans for overflow as well.
I guess three things. I live in the Parks Department, so I walk across Homestead and Lafayette every day. I feel like it's kind of dangerous. That into consideration, I know a lot of people don't like walking across those streets or living in those apartments if you Rob's point, I think that a project or like some type of helpful. I work for a commercial real estate. Resumes are a lot different than their actual work. So their past projects might look nice, but if you give them certain specifications. Thank you. And to Dan's point with the clubbing in the university, it is true that the university students really like the vibe of Campbell and Willow Glen, especially when compared to something a little more big box like the Prune Yard. That's kind of phasing out, and we're going a little more local shops, small breakfast places. So I think if they could consider the perspective of young people and what they'd like to see, especially because this development goes right up against the university. So I bet there's going to be a lot of overflow
I had two technical points. Under the, now I just moved my pages around. It's a little bit ambiguous about whether they will be doing 2 planning sessions each for the council and planning commission, or 1 each. So it's just, I don't remember exactly what. And then the second, under the existing conditions, so under the financial analysis, there's a description of existing market conditions, which is great, but this group is going to be spending more time looking at the existing conditions piece than we are probably digging into that more technical piece. So it'd be really helpful to have not just, and this page didn't print when I printed it, so I'm doing from memory, not just the current demographics and characterizations of the affordable housing inventory that exists, but some broader understanding of what the current housing market is around the planning area. So it specifies that you want to know where there's affordable units, natural or deed restricted, but it would be really helpful to know what that market rate housing conditions in the area are as part of that existing conditions analysis.
Rena Brio, planning manager. I just wanted to tag on to what Matthew Reed had said in terms of being proactive related to the RFP. And it's not going to be simply us putting something out on BidSync, which subscribers obviously will learn about, but we'll also use social media, connect with professional agencies who do planning work so that they're aware and can put it out to their subscribers about the opportunity. So we'll try and use any sort of means that we have available to get mass word out related to getting the best qualified folks to apply.
So yeah, and then, I mean, that just got me thinking, like, if we could get a picture of what, when we're doing that, showing what the old downtown was. I mean, they can do their research, but the best sell job we can do, it's not gonna hurt, right? Yeah.
Maybe add something to our website, some pictures and just kind of like a little, do a presentation. I mean, I think everybody up here, I know we're all probably pretty monotone right now, but I can tell you that most of us are jumping out of our pants. So we're very excited. I think it's time to chum the water and see what we can get, and we want someone excited to be here and to do this project.
Yeah, I'd also like to see the whole RFP process and the development process be not just the public meetings that the winner of the RFP holds, but there are so many opportunities for synergy, like, for example, the Friday Night Live events and concerts in the park that the Cultural Commission sponsors, things that the Parks Division sponsors, and it can be something just as simple as a wish board, and people, write on it or put a tag on it about, I wish downtown had ... And I understand that it's a standard approach to do surveys or a pop-up event, but there are so many other events in the city that draw the community, and I don't want that to be overlooked as an opportunity.
Yeah, I just want to say that definitely is an opportunity. And for El Camino Real this year, this year and last year, we did the Art and Wine Festival and had a couple of boards for people to respond to. So yes, just because it's not in here for the consultant to actually do, city staff does do those events as well. So that's a good point.
So a quick follow-up on that. We've done on our site a lot of surveys like that. So again, it's open if you want to see them, as far as what do you want to see downtown. That was one of the questions of the 2,000 people, nightclubs, types of restaurants, theaters, et cetera. But then the webpage has gone deeper than that too, so.
Can I just add one last thing? We had this with a consultant for the El Camino Real project that we are one of the reasons I love living in this city is that it's a super diverse place. Sometimes, unfortunately, not all the spaces are as diverse as the city is as a whole. So I think this is an opportunity to make a commitment to do a little more to reach out to parts of the city that are maybe a little harder to get to. I felt like the consultant for the El Camino Real project took some kind of low-hanging fruit and didn't really go that extra step to try and reach the people that there's some people that you're always going to hear from, and then there's a lot of folks that live here that would love to use a new downtown that you might not get at the Art and Wine Festival, but there's other places to reach them. So
there was one brief requirement for translation services, but it didn't really spell out what that meant. For example, when we get, our voting pamphlets, they're in 5 languages, and it would be great to even have an event, or several events in multiple languages and in North Side, and not just really focus on the downtown, because we know our community is very diverse.
Anyone else on the RFP? No? So I do have a slide about the selection process. So our next step is to go back and take the input that you've received and relook at the scope of work, finalize it, and then actually release it. It's usually about 3 weeks that it's out there, and then the consultants have to turn in their proposals to us. We review the proposals, a few more weeks. We do interviews, usually another couple of weeks. And then we have a chosen consultant and we negotiate the contract with them. And then we bring that to council for their approval. So hopefully, if this gets out in the new year relatively quickly, we'll have a consultant by spring of this year, March, April, if it all goes well. Don't hold me to those days. So that's the next step in the process. And then what do I have next? And is there?
Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I got a question. Are we going to be able, like, on the interview process, even if it's, kind of weeded down for meeting certain requirements, can they come and present to us because we're going to be working with them so much?
That's a really good question. I actually don't know. I would have to check with our attorney's office to make sure that that is acceptable.
I mean, obviously, there's the legality of, they have to meet the requirements, but after you guys vet that out, if there's 5 or 6 that, you guys are down to the short list?
Right, yeah. Okay. So with that, we want to take any public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to provide any feedback? Yes. Okay.
All right. Hi there. My name is Anthony Becker. I'm here as a resident. Also, I'm a planning commissioner here in the city of Santa Clara. I think this downtown needs to be very harmonious, inclusive with the old quad and all of Santa Clarans, because all Santa Clarans should be involved in this. I agree with Anna Vargas Smith that a trolley is needed. I think it's something that could keep people connecting. Recently, I've been walking a lot to get places, and it's something that really needs to be done because it's harder to get, for example, from where I live on Homestead to El Camino, it's 22 minutes to walk. So something like that would really help people try to get to the BART station. I think it needs to be architecturally appealing, but yet at the same time, it should not be gingerbread boxes. And then we should also include it to be historically appealing. It needs to have a parking garage for sure, 100%. And I spoke to many people this last year about it, which is the building that's on the corner of Lafayette and Homestead is probably, that tall building is a perfect place to bulldoze that, build a parking garage, and put a university village around it. So then the students will have somewhere to walk right across the street to. And the other thing is a movie theater. Definitely a movie theater. Yeah, movies are dying, but at the same time, Spielberg and Lucas, I'm a film major, they told everybody in the 70s, movies, future movies will become event pictures. So example, Star Wars, Spielberg movies, event pictures. And going on with the clubbing issue, yes, we need something for our youth to do things here, because I hate going to downtown San Jose. It feels like I'm going through nothing but checkpoints down there, you know, like TSA. So I think we need to have something here in Santa Clara that's going to get our youth more active, keep our youth safer, I think, and keep them closer to home. And then I think it should just be really mainly mom and pop businesses. When I was going around this whole last year for a campaign, I went around and I talked to a lot of people, and what did they say? They said they want to see mom and pop businesses there where the actual business owners live above the building. Because if you have that case, less parking. You have the person who actually owns the building, and then the person who doesn't have, sorry, the person who's driving in actually is a customer, not the business owner. And then the other thing is, we need to have a new city hall in our downtown, preferably like we had in the last one. I think Redwood City is a good example of how they did their downtown with the city hall inclusive in that. And I think that this land right here is perfect for better land use in the future. And then finally, last three things right here, sorry. Adam and I, both of us, we grew up with no downtown. I think a majority of people in this room probably never experienced the downtown. And I'm not going to say people who actually saw the downtown here, because that's kind of aging them. No offense to anybody in here. And then I think we really need to have festivals here. We need to have parades. Anna Vargas Smith, who's been really active on the parade thing. And then going back to with Brokaw Road, I think Brokaw Road needs to really go through. It went through before. It should do it again, because people, honestly, if you're on Coleman Avenue, they don't know you can go that way and get into Santa Clara. They don't know. It's confusing. And I think that's a perfect idea, because at the same time, the gateway crossings, and I asked Councilmember Davis and Mayor Gilmore and the rest of the council to really include this into our downtown and precise plan, because that is a gateway to our city. And lastly, we need a lot of trees and greenscapes, because this is an area that I want to have shade, and I want people to feel very comfortable and at home, because building this downtown will make people feel at home again. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, if you want to just pass it to the next person, thanks.
I do remember downtown. I went to Saturday matinees in the late 50s, I guess it was. The only thing I ever won in my life there, a bicycle on a Saturday matinee afternoon. And downtown Santa Clara was wonderful. It's like the old downtown Campbell. Campbell's kind of preserved their downtown, but it was pretty run down for many, many years, maybe decades. It finally became successful when they put a garage right there above or back of a Keys restaurant, which was right in the heart of downtown. And that solidified the success of downtown. And I think everything you've said is great, because it all goes to vision. What's the vision? Adam has vision. Dan has vision, because we've been thinking about it for years. But you need a vision to give to this urban planner, this person you're going to pick to be the consultant, to present to the council for approval what will be eventually built. You need a vision. And all of these things go to vision. And it's up to the task force, in my opinion, to create that vision. We've been talking about it here and there, but my vision of it is to bring back the charm of downtown and have wide sidewalks and have many, many residential units above it, rented and owner-occupied, owner-owned. I would love to live above downtown Santa Clara in a condo. I would love to do that. Be a wonderful opportunity for older people. And I'll leave you with one question. Leslie, how was the 396 derived as the number of residential units?
I actually don't know how they came up with 396. Unfortunately, I was not here in 2010 when they developed the general plan. In reading the general plan, I don't know how they came up with those numbers, but that's the current number that's in the general plan. That's not to say that we can't change the number. This precise plan will give us the opportunity to do that.
I'm kind of curious to follow up on that. How many units are in the development on Franklin and Monroe? And is that part of the 396? I'm just curious. Something like 50, I guess. Okay.
We'll look it up. Hold on.
Anyway, I'm really excited to see this task force. I think there's some great people on it. A couple of comments I'll make. I don't care how old y'all think I am. I remember downtown. I remember there were the 2 5 and dimes, the joke shop, the movie theater. That's a big one. I really think it would be good to have a movie theater back. But a movie theater in a way, now I'm just going to tell you my fantasy. One that maybe is more than just a place that shows movies. And I'm thinking a little bit, if any of you remember the Gaslight Theater, whatever it used to be in Campbell, the idea being it's more than just movies. It could be plays and the like. I think a community center of some sort would be important. I also agree about having capacity for parking, but I haven't really thought this through. I tend to think any kind of parking garage should be a combination of underground and above ground and would be better suited closer to train station, BART, and the rest, because that's where you capture the people that are using that transportation corridor. And then, of course, if you have a trolley that connects to that, you get them downtown. Like Matthew on the ECR specific, well, that longest name of any committee I've ever been on. Anyway, I think I would like to see the continuity between what's going on in the downtown, down through the El Camino, and what eventually we're calling the uptown. That gives kind of some kind of connectivity. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I can tell you when the downtown was torn down, and I've had family here that were major, they were all over downtown, okay? And the family discussions we had when the downtown was torn down and what a new downtown might look like, including the monstrosity of high-rises that were just like gross. One of the problems that was brought to my attention back then, and I was probably 10 years old, I never forgot it, was that one of the problems Santa Clara had was access. Okay, when you think of a place like Valley Fair, why did that kind of kill off downtown San Jose? Because you got 880, 280, major freeway access that was easy to get to and describe no matter where you were coming from in the Bay Area. When you think about it right now, Santa Clara, now we got BART coming in, we got the trains, but when you think about it, if I was to describe to a friend of mine in San Francisco, how do you get to downtown Santa Clara? It wouldn't be take this exit off of 101 and you make one turn. It'd be like, well, make a left here and a right there, and if it's traffic, kind of go around 3 other not good. I think that has to be that connectivity to the transportation corridor and to the access to downtown has to make sense. Because as much as I would love to have a downtown with the family-owned bistros and things of that nature, you're not going to, look what's happening with City Lights. You're not going to have a family-owned bistro if they can't make a living out of it. And they're not going to be able to make a living out of it if there isn't the kind of access that brings them the business. And I think that's something that old people like me sometimes forget when we're dreaming of the cute little downtown with all the bistros. The bistros won't stay alive if we don't make it someplace attractive for business where they can actually thrive. So that's it. Anybody?
Can I ask you one more question? The project you were asking about, is it the one on Benton Street near El Camino? Or the one on Monroe?
The one where it used to be the Bank of America, for those that are more VFW before that, Netto Sausage after that, that one.
Oh, okay.
Across from the ball.
So that's 44 units.
Okay. So there was a history lesson on what used to be on that corner. Seriously, I remember the B of A.
Anybody else?
And the VFW.
Hello there. My name is George. First time one of these, so I never thought I'd be in a city commission planning, but it's pretty interesting. Oh, sorry. So I was looking at the plans you're showing, and I perhaps have more of an interest or stake in this than any of you on the commission, because I actually, depending on which version, I'm either in the boundary of the plan or I'm on the edge of it. So curious to see what the plan eventually comes up with. So not crazy about the idea of having a parking lot behind my structure, so that was interesting to see. But definitely, I would like for you guys perhaps to consider more of an input from the guys that actually live within the perimeter of what you guys are talking about, because I'm one of them. There's a couple other guys we've discussed, and we've heard rumblings about all this going on for the last couple of years. We didn't know how serious this was until all of a sudden we started realizing that maybe there is some momentum now. And we've heard of the committee, we've seen flyers, and never thought I'd be here, but so certainly please ask perhaps for more feedback from the people. And we just learned about the Old Quad Residents Association, so we're going to join that as well. So please, I'm really interested in what comes up with this.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the public? No, thank you. Oh,
Can I,
one more.
as a non-quad person, respond to that?
Sure.
So, Adam and I know each other, and Rob and I. One of the goals of our group is to make sure that the kid playing with his ball out on Lexington is just as safe afterwards as he is right now. So we're very conscious of the quad and making sure that they're very well represented here, and that this doesn't have a negative impact, but indeed the opposite. It has a positive impact on you. So, but I'd love to talk to you offline on that. Sorry, go ahead.
Nick, Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce. I'm really happy that this is going through. I know we've been working with the Rod for a little while, and this is great. The one thing I'd like to say is this: I think there's a big difference between Willow Glen and Campbell. Willow Glen dies after 9 o'clock unless you're going to a Keys or something. And I know Rod brought up early on the economic difference between a Willow Glen and a Campbell, and they're insane. So I think we have to be okay with having more traffic down there, more people staying there later. I think that's something that, as we're going forward, that we have to really be open about to people. So then when it's not the final stages of getting this approved, people say, hold on a second, there's going to be stuff open past 10 o'clock. I think that's really important. So all this work doesn't get stopped right before it goes to council. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to add that if you want to stay up to date on this whole process, I do have a sign-in sheet for the public right here at the end of the table. So if you want to put your contact information, I can add you to our contact list.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to one thing that Anthony said that I was kind of wondering too. I just don't know if this is possible to put into the RFP as a preference. But I know that in some planning that the city has done for new developments, there's been a preference for some ratio of affordable housing versus market. And I'm wondering if something like that could also be suggested for local businesses versus franchises, or something, some mix that would kind of help have that, give that support to local businesses. Is that something we could ask for? It might not be very common.
That might not, I'm not sure that's something that would go in the RFP. That would be something that more would maybe be a policy or guidance in the plan itself. But I wrote it down, so it's something we can remember to talk about.
This goes to Adam's point on, what we are versus how it translates to the RFP. I'm going to quote a kind of a sage for us, an urban planner, that said, "Don't ask for people's opinion until they've become informed on the issues." And one thing I want to suggest is that this group gets on a bus or whatever and goes to Sunnyvale and Palo Alto and Redwood City and maybe, however far up we want to go. It could be a half a day, and just walk around, even Santana Row. I know that's kind of like, Santana Row. But I'm not blaming Adam on this, but he and I went down and had a cocktail down there, and after leaving Spain, I hated it before that, and I'm not crazy about it now, but there are nuances in there that they built in that are very, very unique and attractive, and I think transferable to what we're attempting to do here. So I just want to put that out there, that I think that'd be a good idea to do that. And then the follow-on is, once we do that and become incredible experts like Rob, how does that translate to the RFP and our inputs on that?
I don't know that particularly well translates to the RFP, other than that, if you did it, it would be something for the consultant that we hired, more information for them to use when they start, doing the planning, the workshops, and the things that we're going to do to get this plan going. So I definitely see it as, like you'd mentioned too, that you have a lot of background information, just like gathering all of that stuff that you have,
right,
which we could hand to the consultant for them to inform themselves.
Good.
It would just be another piece of information for them to get to know, what we're looking for.
Right.
Can I say something? So I've been through this a little bit before, and this is sort of just the first step. I think a useful way to think about it is this is a process that's going to be the vehicle for a lot of these substantive issues to rise. It can work really well, and it can kind of not work that well. So I'd say for the public, particularly those of you that shared your ideas, you can't overstate how important that is to this process. And I think for the group here, I see a lot of energy, but it would be great if we could make a commitment to each other to really dig in and stick with this, because it's going to be up to us to make it a productive process. The only other thing I'd say is, in some ways, this is the visioning process. That rather than give somebody a vision and send them off to do their professional work, their job is to come in and capture the vision, and it's our job to communicate that to them. So I don't think we need to be as anxious about this first step, but we need to be really vigilant about how we engage in this process with this person, because they're only going to have, it's not true, they're going to bring a lot. We're counting on the fact that they're going to bring a lot, but they are also really going to be working with what we give them. And so the richness and the opportunity of the process is really as dependent on us as it is on them. And that's good, it's empowering, but it's also something we should realize.
And we're seeing the same thing. We just want to, make sure that we're coming back with intelligent, opinions on what we've liked and not liked.
So we just have one more comment before we leave public comment. Saw a hand raised.
Couldn't help myself. And Matthew, I think You probably said it more eloquently, what I was thinking. My concern is this. There's a consultant hired. I would be not happy if the consultant simply, let me have your binders, let me have your research, and walked off in a corner and said, here's what you want. I want to stress that I really want to see whatever consultant is hired works with the task force. And I think you probably said it better than I am right now, because everybody has their own vision. And I've worked with a lot of consultants in my adult life, and I used to have a saying we used to have about consultants. They take your watch and then tell you what time it is. Okay? I mean, I really want to make sure that the task force is involved with the work product of the consultant. That's all.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Are there any rules for about us organizing ourselves to go to like do a little field trip or anything like that? Because we're not a voting body, right?
Right, there are no rules. You're welcome to.
I like no rules.
There's no rules. Perfect.
Okay, with that, so the next step for us, again, is to release the RFP and get the consultant selected. We also will be establishing a technical advisory committee, so that committee will be made up of other city departments, outside agencies like BTA, adjacent cities possibly, not really for downtown, but you never know. And then council will, the contract for the chosen consultant will go to council, and then once that happens, we'll really dive in and start the process. Any other questions before we go? So it'll probably be, you know, a little bit before you hear from us again on more community events, but.
I know you're going to be shocked. I got one more.
Go ahead.
Okay, so how do we get the, you know, what's obviously important is the current landowners and how we get feedback from them on their visions and what they want, and do we get a chance to maybe interface with them and hear that out?
Yes, we will be doing outreach to the landowners in the boundary, as well as with some area developers to kind of get their input on, you know, what's going on in the developer world. So those will be additional forms of outreach, yes.
Great.
Any other questions, comments?
Did I miss any?
Yeah. So I don't know the date of the release of the RFP yet, so we're going to take back this draft and take into consideration all the comments we've heard and revise it, and then it'll be released, likely probably end of January, earlier if possible. No, once we release it, it'll be final, yes, and then anybody can see it. We can post it on our website. You can. Yeah, I think this was their opportunity to give us the input. Yeah.
The truth is the 90% of the RFP looks like every other RFP that's ever been produced. It's really just the technical requirements of the person that will be brought in. It makes a tremendous difference who gets brought in, but the language of as a part of this process, I'm far less concerned about what this says than the actual choice that gets made and where we go from there. So with a little bit of experience, this isn't what we have to be worried about. What we need to be worried about is finding somebody who's excited about the opportunity and who's ready to engage with us. So anybody can respond to this. It's the process of selecting them.
Well, we did.
Well, Go ahead.
I mean, that's what I said in the beginning. This is it's pretty technical, and I think we could tweak it and maybe get an extra 1% out of it. But again, what I've been focused on in anything is it's about who you hire. That person has to be the right fit. I don't care what business you own. You know, hiring somebody, it can be a painful process, but it's the most important thing. You don't want to go into a relationship. It's a big relationship. It's a financial commitment. It's an emotional. So I think that's where the hard work is going to be done. I mean, well, but most of that, I mean, what's going to bring well, no, that's what we're going to start discussing about. But the picking of somebody, it'll be discussed in the interviewing process about. That's the first question I would have is, you know, we had a soul ripped out in our downtown, torn down and it's a university town. Just give us your vision or give us an example of what you've recreated. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. No, explicitly, you know, we sent out a draft RFP for the committee here to give us feedback today. A lot of the feedback provided seems like very concrete. Some of it still, you know, about vision, but definitely we feel like we can take the direction that we got and turn it into a document so we can get the RFP out and we can start talking about who we're selecting rather than the application. Quite frankly, a lot of these consultants are looking for this information. I mean, this is probably not going to be the first project that whoever we select has worked on, right? So we want to get this out to as many people as possible. I think outreach to how this information gets out is really important, and then once again, who we ultimately select. But I feel like the information that we got today, us revising it and getting input once again, would probably provide a delay and not provide the amount of additional benefit that you all were communicating to us. But just a few minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Manuel Pineda, Assistant City Manager. Sorry, don't want to give let me do this so I don't give my back to anyone, which I don't like. So, yeah, oh yeah, that's a side right there. So just from a context perspective, I think Matthew and Rob explained it very well that this is one step in the process, and I think it was really important to get the feedback from the task force just to determine what additional things we want to put for the consultants to consider. I think what you want to be aware of is, you know, I've been through many of these processes, both for, you know, land use and transportation and engineering, so different. This is just to help us through the selection process, and ultimately, really what I'm interested to see is who submits on it, kind of what they present to us, because I can imagine that we, in this group, in this room, we're going to have all the great ideas, and always like to even leave it a little open to see if people come up with ideas that we might have not thought of. And ultimately, what determines the work that's going to be done is that final scope of work that we negotiate with them. And that'll be part of kind of what the task force is saying today. I think staff knows we need to do because we're required to do so, what we're hearing from the community, and ultimately what the council is going to approve. And that's going to be open to the public as well. So if at any point, as we're looking at these consultants and you know, the proposals are of course become public at some point that people can see them, if you're interested to see them, the community, the task force, the council will make the ultimate determination, but they'll be able to see that scope to see if anybody feels like we're missing anything that needs to be added, and really what fits into it. So this is one step. This is like the beginning step. It's not the final step. And I think the idea of trying to get the perfect RFP, I tell you, after doing maybe 50 or 60 of them, you'll never get there. And part of it is because in so many times it's happened where the teams come in and they think of things that are new and different, and sometimes even the one that you didn't select, but that you can take that idea from them and give it to the team that you selected. But that drafting that final scope of work, that's really where you finally decide this is the work we're going to do. So I want to make sure that doesn't get lost in the process, and that's a totally that contract and final scope will go through a public process, including city council approval.
So it's not in cement.
I got one question. If we go through the process of the RFP and we have the applicants apply and we determine that none of them are a match, can we resend it back out? Okay.
Okay, so everyone got that? Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So if we send out the RFP, we get a bunch of applicants, we interview them, go through the process, and determine that none of them meet or fit in Santa Clara, then we can resend out the RFP to get more applicants. It would obviously take time, but if it's not a fit, then we can send it back out. I have done that before. Yeah. I think that's a safety.
Can I just state that we did get this statement of work a couple weeks ago, and we all have had a chance to study it, and hopefully, you know, I read through it and highlighted things and came prepared. There are some things I would like to see elaborated, like what does translation services mean? What's the parking ratio going to be? What does placemaking mean to you? But those might be more like interview questions. They're in the scope of work, and I think it's up for the candidates or the people who are responding to the RFP. Yeah, and then we would evaluate what that is. But I want to say that I feel confident that the scope of work as it is doesn't have any gaps from my perspective, and I'd be interested in seeing how people respond to it.
And just to Manuel's point, the interviewing, I think to be able to take things from, you know, 6 or 7 applicants to go and give to the final applicant would be really helpful. So that's kind of another reason why I'd like to interview them, so that we can grab some of their ideas and some of their energy. If one person has one really great idea, but maybe isn't the right fit overall.
All right, so with that, I don't have anything else. Thank you all for attending. This has been really helpful. I think there's some few other things I can put in here to tighten it up, and look forward to getting together with all of you again. And in the meantime, you'd mentioned background information. If you guys have stuff you want to start sending to me to compile, please do. Okay.